Good morning, everyone, and happy spring. We're very happy to be kicking off the season with really great guest Andrew Marr. How's it going, Andrew?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for
Pleasure.
being here. You're in Toronto now, right?
No, I'm up in Southampton on the
Okay,
Bruce Peninsula. I'm about 5 minutes from the Saugeen River.
right on. Nice. And where did you grow up? Did you grow up down here? I actually didn't learn that about you.
Yeah, I grew up in Toronto, Yonge and Lawrence area. So that was sort of my stomping grounds. But then we always had a place up. I had a place up on the French River. A group that I belonged to owns a cabin, and I did a lot of fishing up some lakes north of Toronto. I grew up fishing pike, muskie bass, lake trout, all that stuff.
Yeah, cool. And so, I mean, yeah, obviously, you've got lots of experience locally, but what we're really excited to hear about, you are a guide, and I don't know, have you guided anywhere else other than Wollaston?
Yeah, so well, I actually started guiding when I was 15.
Oh, yeah.
I did 3 summers when I was a kid in a tin boat. God, taking people from local resorts. So my guide career started in Ontario at the age of 15,
Very neat.
and then I went to Sir Sanford Fleming, and I did ecology, ecosystem management. Sold fish. I was in retail like you, selling fishing stuff for 6 years, and then I made the jump, and I started off my professional guide career with Minor Bay Lodge, on the same lake that I'm on now. So I've guided on Minor Bay. I worked at Casba up in the Northwest Territories. I've guided on Lake of the Woods. Uh, yeah, and then I've been at Wollaston now for, well, this will be 8 years, and I'll be 10 years on that lake now.
Very cool. Nice. And so, for people who aren't familiar, Wollaston Lake is northern Saskatchewan, right?
Yeah, northeast corner.
Northeast. All right.
So we're, up in the way the watershed works is you had, like, say, Great Bear Lake up in the territories comes down, then you'd have Athabasca and Reindeer, and we'd kind of be in between Athabasca and Reindeer, about
Yeah.
a few hundred miles south of Northwest Territories. So we're up there.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And as would be expected, I guess the fishing gets pretty good once you get up that far.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's all right. Very cool. Yeah. So you've been coming down to the shop for a while, so we've gotten to know you. Got to see some of your flies. Know you're an awesome tire. You just had a filmed, not specifically about you, but I guess filmed at the lodge, and you were featured in it too. We have, I think, the link down in the description here. Tell us a bit about that, what that was like.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you a little bit, but yeah. So that's part of the connection there. There's the fly fishing film tour,
Yep.
which has been around for a while now, and we in 2019 we did a film called A Common Thread, and it toured for the 2020 Film Festival. And I was the head or one of the head guides on that, and it centers around one of my guests, Mary Pettigrew, who's a long time guest of the lodge. She's a 72-year-old great grandmother, and she comes and fly fishes with me for about 12 days a year, and she kicks butt. And it was basically, so it's following, this old fly fishing lady, hanging out with me and her family. And so the film got released. So now it's out on YouTube. I would surely encourage people to go watch A Common Thread.
Yep. In the description.
There's some pretty good pike eats.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well worth watching. Absolutely. Good add-on.
There's some big fish.
there are some big fish. Cool. Well, that's awesome. We know a little bit about you. What are we tying today? We're doing some pike flies. I guess it goes without saying.
Yeah, I'm not going to be tying anything huge. I'm not tying anything big. I'm going to tie smaller, fairly simple flies. I'm going to tie a bait fish pattern to start. There's a million bait fish patterns out there. They're all good. There's just a few little things I tweak mine for my purposes. I'm going to touch on the bunny leech. I'm going to do a little bit with the bunny leech. I'm going to do a poor man's whistler. And then we might get to one or two others. I've got one that's super simple. It's going to take about a minute to tie, and there's a little backstory to it. So
Terrific. I think you want to talk a little bit about, and I'd certainly be curious in hearing about it as well. like the fishing and what people should expect. Whether they're going on an awesome trip up to Wollaston or if it's more local stuff. Like if somebody hasn't fly fished for pike before, what should they be expecting? What should they be gearing up with apart from a few flies?
Gearing up, we generally we have fly rods in the boats. We run 10 weights mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a lot to do with the safety of the fish. You can get away with an 8 or 9. My personal biggest pike is on an 8 weight. 4.7 is my biggest, and that's on an 8 weight. And I was probably a little undergunned. I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to go lighter than that. So 9, 10, you can get up to 11 even for some great big stuff. That's sort of the range that you want to be in. The vast majority of our fishing is 10 feet of water and less. And a lot of my fly fishing might be 5 feet of water and less. So it's mostly floating lines. I'll get into some intermediate lines. I don't spend a lot of time with sink tips. When we're doing Lakers, I want sink tips. Like this is the logo off my hat. So we have pike, grayling, walleye, lake trout. Those are the main ones. The pike is the big draw. So some of the other fish, you'll get into some sinking lines and stuff. But most of what I do is floating line or sometimes intermediate.
Right on.
You want to have yourself some spool for leaders and stuff. A spool of 20-pound mono. I don't run fluoro. But mono to your wire, and I know you guys have some wire there. I run wire in the 20, 26, and 30 pound, the tieable stuff mostly.
Yep.
If I was going to go a little bit more finesse, a little lighter, really clear water, spooky fish, I'm going to go down to that 20. The 26 is my mainstay, and then 30. But honestly, with a spool of wire and a spool of, say, 20-pound mono, in a floating line on a 9 weight, good to go.
And what kind of like we've got
length? Yeah, shorter.
We've got pre-tied stuff, but if somebody wanted to build their own, using the wire bite stuff, like what kind of lengths are you talking there?
I'd say the longer I've been doing it, the shorter my leads have been getting.
Sure.
To be honest, I mean they're just easier to turn the fly over. So some bait, getting to 4 feet is getting pretty long. They're not shy. I mean, the fly line isn't going to really spook them. Maybe like 3 to 4 feet of mono, and that changes with the fly. The bigger the fly, the shorter I go.
Sure.
The smaller the fly, you can get away a little bit longer, generally speaking. But I don't use any snaps when I run wire. I tie direct. So I start off with about 18 inches of wire, 18, 16 inches. And the idea there is that I'm going to retie. Because I'm not using a snap, I'm going to be retying. So that gets shorter and shorter and shorter through the day. And I'll retie many times. But if I start to get into, that leader starts to get down to, say, 12 inches, 11 inches, I mean, we're dealing with some pretty big pike. That a 10-inch leader isn't going to cut it for our pike. They can go up behind it and just eat the whole thing. So that's how I do it. I start longer than maybe what I would ideally like, but just knowing that it's going to get a little shorter, and it just gives me a chance to retie a few times.
Sure. And the snaps, is that a trust thing with the snaps, or is that because of their weight that you don't like them?
A bit of both. Sink rate is a major factor with pike flies. That's a big thing. So having that, if you have too heavy a snap, you don't want that lure just dropping out of the zone. So that's part of it. I don't have a major issue with snaps. If I'm using bigger flies, I could probably get away with a snap because it doesn't affect the overall.
There's not much impact on the sink rate.
Shape or profile of it. So if you're using a big fly and you're fishing them quick, use a snap. It's not going to hurt you too much. We did have a bit of a fiasco one year with the gear guys, where we had bought a bunch of leaders for the lodge, and they had coast lock snaps on them, and for whatever reason, it was just a particular batch. and guys were hooking up on pike with spinners and things like that. They'd roll and they were taking the lure right off the snap.
Wow. Huh.
And
Not even opening up.
It was a bit of an issue with the lodge for a season.
Yeah. Huh. It's interesting.
So, you don't run into that too often. I don't have a major issue with snaps. I just tie direct, and I tie a loop knot.
You do, and so
that connection of the mono to the wire, I tie a uni to uni knot.
Sure.
And I make 3 turns with the wire on the uni to uni. If you go 4 turns, it kind of doesn't work. 2 turns is enough. Just trust me. If you're going to tie mono to wire with a uni to uni knot, it's 3 turns on the wire. It'll hold whatever fish you're going to catch.
Yep.
However many on the backside, but yeah, it's nothing too complicated.
Cool. And then preferred knot to the fly, perfection loop for you, or what's your loop knot?
I do a loop knot or a figure 8 knot.
Yep. Okay.
Cool. I don't really have it. It would be hard to kind of show you. I don't know. Have you posted a video of that, or how to do a loop knot?
Different ones. I'm not sure if it's the same one that you're talking about. We've done like a Rapala knot. We've done a perfection loop. I use perfection loops myself, but yeah.
It doesn't necessarily matter what the knot is, as long as it's a loop knot, in my opinion.
Sure.
So say, with a bunny leech, okay, I got a bunny leech here. If you were to use wire, if you were to tie a cinch knot, a cinch knot on a fly like that gets really tight, and the fly actually doesn't flow as freely in the water. When you have a loop knot, the flies move so much freer. And on certain patterns, the difference between a cinch knot that's tight against that loop versus having the gap can have a real effect on the action of the fly. So that's why I use a loop knot. Like I said, there's a lot of different loop knots out there. They're all good. But that's just a loop knot over a cinch knot for sure.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Right, I'm sure we'll have some more in-depth questions on gear, but I think that's a good starting point to get people kind of familiar. But I know folks are here to see some flies tied, so let's jump into that. And
sure.
As we're going here, guys, if anyone does have questions, just drop them in the chat on the right side of the screen, and we'll answer those as we go. All right.
Yeah.
Throw it over.
I'm at your mercy here, guys. So as many questions as you want to pepper, if we can get in, feel free. I won't be shy. Okay, so I just got to adjust this a little bit here. Get you in on the vise. And you sort of just tell me how I'm doing here.
Yeah, that looks pretty
good. I'm going to be a little tight on it there. See that okay?
Yep. Yeah, it'll come through better once we have some thread and stuff on there. But yeah, looks good.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing I do here, I learned this from some of the guys at Hairline. With these flies, they can tend to roll a little bit. This is what we're going to tie. Okay. Nice. What I don't want is you don't want a fly where it spins on the shank. So something I've started doing just a little bit is I take a file and I actually take it to the hook.
Yep.
On the part I'm going to tie on. I don't need to go all the way back. And just a few little shots with that, with a file. And you're just sort of roughing up that surface a little bit. If it's really smooth, just over the life of a fly, it's just going to add a few more fish to it. It's going to stop it from spinning as quick. Just something I do. I don't really worry about rust too much. My flies don't get to live that long generally.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to start off with is Danville. I'm using a mono thread for this one.
Okay.
The Danville 006.
Any particular reason, like the mono?
Yeah, I'm using a mono thread here.
Yeah. So, any particular reason that you prefer that one?
Yeah. Well, so I used to tie these with like a Danville, like a 200. The thing I would run into, one of the reasons I started doing is I was tying, bucktail deceivers and stuff like that. If you look at this fly, you see the color. You see how the color shines through here?
Yep.
So that's the material. So the mono thread will allow that to shine through, where you can just see the transition in the head.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Otherwise, if you're using a white, like a flat wax or something like that, you need to use a Sharpie. And it's sort of hard. There are certain colors like you can't get an olive Sharpie. So for perch patterns, so I kind of started doing this, and I've just come to prefer the mono thread for this pattern up in the head.
Cool. Yeah, makes perfect.
It kind of came down to how I colored up the head. It's kind of a seamless transition color wise.
Yep. Cool.
Sort of comes in later. So okay, gonna do my thread base here, and I'm not going too far back. I'm tying on a 2-aught baitfish hook with a pretty heavy gauge. You know, it's not super heavy, but that's about the smallest hook I tie on, and I don't like light wire for too many things. Bunny leeches are about the only thing I'll tie light wire, but so pretty sturdy hook. Done my thread base. I'm not going to do any gluing today, but I would always lay down head cement or super glue. I would just glue the base. You know, we've scuffed up that shank a little bit, so it's going to hold a little bit. I would still be putting glue on it, but just for fumes and all that stuff, I'm not going to do that right now.
Sure.
So what I've got is I'm going to use a couple materials. There's really only 3 materials in there. There's going to be slinky fiber. Whenever I come into the drift, I always raid you guys for slinky fiber and crystal flash. I like crystal flash. And for our blend, SF blend.
Yep.
The difference between a slinky fiber and an SF blend, you can't really maybe see it, but the SF blend has flash integrated into it. Slinky fiber doesn't. It's just sort of a matte finish.
Yeah, but you could interchange those, I suppose, if you wanted to.
What's that?
I don't see, like, would there be any reason not to be able to interchange those?
No. Oh, no. If you want to tie the entire fly out of one or the other, you're perfectly fine. Like, you can tie this with a bunch of different materials. I personally use slinky fiber. I don't know. I mean, there's so many different materials out there, and they're all good.
Yep.
I mean, that's just sort of what I've come to use. So I'm going to start off with slinky fiber. Now, here's a bolt, okay, or a whole thing. Here, I think they're about 9 inches or so. Now, what I would do with this is I would take this whole thing, I'd tie a bunch, and I'd cut it at about 5.5 inches on one side. Okay, this is going to be my tail section, and then at the front, you're going to be left with about that. It's about 8 inches. So when I cut them, these are the 2 sections. It's about 1/3, 2/3, right? Okay, I got one section. This is going to be kind of my base. This is going to be the top. So that's how I would take that material. Is I would take this, cut it right about there. That's my starting point to this fly. And what I end up with is, so I've got my nice yellow slinky fiber, and it's about 8 inches or so. I'm going to take the amount I need. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull it out. Okay. When it comes in that package, okay, imagine that your fibers are all like this. They're all together. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out. Okay. Like this. And where my nails are, that's my tie-in point. Okay. I don't want it like this. I'm going to pull it all out, make it a little thinner, and it's going to add some taper into it. Okay. And the middle kind of becomes my tie point. So take this and just stretch it all out a little bit. And this will all get trimmed after. Okay, so pretty long. So I've cut it to 5 inches. I can pull it out to 7.5 inches, something like that. So that's going to give me a bit of length. And I'm going to tie this sort of to, 1/3, 2/3. So I'll start off, and when I tie it into first, I'm not going to go up. I'm going to go about halfway back. Okay, it should show up pretty good here. Okay, and I'm going to tie it on top. When you tie a bait fish, there's a couple ways you can do it. 50% of your material on the bottom, or 50% on the top, I'm going to tie this, kind of 75-25. There's a few reasons for that, and I'll touch on them later. But so here's kind of how I'm starting. Now I want the back end is going to be a little shorter. And I just want it so that when I fold this back, that this top section is going to go beyond the bottom section. Okay, that's it. Hold it out, a little shorter, a little longer, fold it back, and I can push down around it. I'm not really trying to go around the hook shank with this. I'm still keeping it high and tight, where this is a real high and tight tie. Okay, and I'm just going to tie this in here, fold it back. Okay. So there's still a little bit of gap up at the front. I'm not tight on the eye. You look at that. Okay, so you see how we folded it back? You already got taper. There's already taper. It's pretty dead simple, this fly. Okay, so this is going to be the middle of my fly. So now I'm going to grab my crystal flash, and you can pick whatever color you like. I think this is root beer or something like that. And I might get, I don't know, a dozen strands or so, something like that. Click that. Okay. And again, like how we did this, we teased it out. I'm going to tease these out a little bit. Okay, just so they're a little bit uneven.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do is I'm going to lay this down on top, and I'm going to try and get it so it goes a little bit past the slinky fiber here, so that when the whole fly is kind of tied up, there's a little bit of flash in the tail, a little bit of wiggle, makes it pretty good. So just going to tie it in, again, sort of like a 1/3, 2/3 sort of deal. So I have some in front. I'm going to fold that back. Okay. Few wraps, nothing too special here. And I don't glue this. I don't put any glue on this. I glue the base, but I don't need to add any glue at this point. So we got our bottom, we got our taper, we got our lateral line. This sort of acts as a lateral line that all little minnows have. They have a little black or something in there, and that's what this is going to act as. Okay. So now I'm going to take my Farrar blend, or the SF blend, or whatever topping material you want. And this is cut to the same length as what I'd cut my slinky fiber to. Same length. Mm-hmm. Okay. So all the proportions is even. Okay. I'm going to just pull out a bit here. You kind of, with experience, you tie a few of these, you'll kind of figure out the amounts that you want. But you want to keep these two amounts even. The amount of this and the amount of this are roughly even, maybe a little thinner on this, but that doesn't matter. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to tie in front of where we tied in the slinky fiber, where we have the little gap. That's just going to nestle down in there. I'm going to try and get, about the same length as it, get to finish off where the last batch was. Okay. And again, I'm tying just on top. Okay. I'm not forcing it around. It's high and tight is the whole key here. Okay. Just a little bit off the front. Now, before I fold this back, I'm going to fold this back. I'm going to tie over this. I'm going to just tie this in a little bit more over the top of our previous material. Okay. Just like that. Now I'm going to do the fold back. Okay. And when I'm folding this back, I'm pinching this up, like I said, high and tight. I'm holding it and forcing it back to be more upright and above the shank. There we go. And I'm going to just try and I'll bring that back to kind of the same spot there. Okay. And we've already got a little bit of contrast, a little bit of taper. Pretty easy. Okay, now I have a little bit of orange. I'm going to go in here. Again, orange slinky fiber. This would be, when I trimmed it, how we talked about this, right? This is this section up here. This is the front end of the cut. So 5.5 inches, 3 inches, 2.5, something like that. Take a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing here. we're going to tease this out a little bit, tease it out, tease that end out a little bit. I just don't, want it too sharp. This will all get trimmed. Now this is going to go on the bottom. We haven't tied anything on the bottom here yet. Okay. I mean, you can almost still see the shank of the hook there. I'm going to lay this over, and I'm going to go same way we did it before. Longer off the back, fold it over, right? Okay. I'm going to lay that in. And when I tie this in, I'm going to tie right up to the eyelet. Okay. I'm going to not crowd it too much, but I'm going to really get up tight to there. Okay. Tied in. Lift all these materials in. Same thing. We're going to tie back over the head. We're creating a nice little head here. Okay. There you go. Okay. Going to fold this over. Same thing. And I'm pulling it back between my fingers with a lot of force, pretty tight. Okay. There. I'm just going to slowly get that going in there. Pull it back. Okay. And I'm trying to create a real line behind the fly here. All my thread is ending at the same spot. And what I don't want to do, you don't want to be coming way back here. Okay, you see how that changes the profile?
Flattens it out a lot, yeah.
You see how this sort of bends? If I go too far back, you end up with a kind of a weirdly, it makes a weird dip. Like, you don't have that even flow. It kind of goes down. You don't want that. So you don't want to be going too far back here. Okay. See the difference? See how that all just pops up? We've really forced it there on a solid line, okay? So we've done the bottom. Now we're going to go up to the top. Okay, here's my orange again. Here's that 3-inch, the front half of what I trimmed. Now, you might go a little thicker. When you do the head, you do this section, you can use a little bit more material than what you did back here. You can do this a little bit lighter because you want a bit more movement. So this can be a little less material, and the head would be a little bit more. That just in proportions when you're thinking about how much you want to put in, you can go a little bit more on the head section, on the short stuff, than the back. That's going to force water over the fly, but okay, so trim it out, pull it out a little bit. That's maybe a little bit too much. We'll go a little thinner here.
You were saying, Andrew, this is...
Okay, and I'm going to tie it in. Lay it on top.
Yeah.
A little farther, more to the back. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to come up. I'm going to kind of get it close to the eye. And fold it back. Now on the top one, the other ones I'd hold them back pretty high and tight. This one you can force it down around there a little bit. You can come down the sides a little bit. Got a bit of a weird gap on it. Here, hang on. I'm going to fold that back again. Come down a little bit more here. Okay. I'm going to jostle it around a little bit on the sides, but there. That's about all there is to it. Now, I'm going to do stick-on eyes. I use stick-on eyes. Chris, you did a great video on Deceiver recently.
Oh, yeah.
And you did the 3D eyes. You could do this on a little bit shorter. You could still do 3D eyes and fill in gaps. I do stick-on eyes, and this is, again, one of the reasons I use mono thread. I always used to finish the fly off with a mono thread. And eventually I just started tying the whole thing. So, stick-on eye.
Okay. Yeah.
One wrap.
Over.
Here we go.
So you're saying, Andrew, this one's tied on a 2-aught. Do you scale this up at all? Do you tie it up 3-aught, 4-aught, bigger?
No, yeah, I mean, I've done some bigger. This is the day in and day out.
Yep.
Fly. So that film, A Common Thread, when I was fishing with Mary, she fished this fly for 12 days. And we had, I mean, probably one of our best days was oh, like 35 fish over, 30 inches and 5 over 40 with a 45 on it
Wow.
on a fly that's not that big, but at 72 years old, that's an easy, you can throw that all day. All your thread is up here. There's no exposed thread back here. Everything is locked in. And yeah, I've seen, there's a fly called a Scox Mega Mushy, which they tie up to 10 inches. But it's the same idea as this.
Sure.
I've tied great big versions of this, but most of them are in that sort of 3 to, a 5-inch range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just going to do a little whip finish here. And we'll talk about this. We're going to talk about this fly a little bit more here. But there you go. That's about all there is to it. Now, a lot of guys probably would want the eye back here. Some guys would want a 3D eye, and you could do all your, you could do the UV epoxy, and some guys will take 5-minute epoxy and they'll put it through there. I like the eye here because, if I catch 100 fish on this fly, there's still going to be an eye on it.
Sure.
They can't get at it. It's not as fancy, but this is really a throwback fly to the East Coast guys that were fishing stripers and bluefish.
Mm-hmm.
This style was almost done back in the 70s. When the guys started tying bait fish flies and putting 5-minute epoxy on them and stuff like that. Guys were catching 50 bluefish on it. So that's sort of why this relates to us pike guys. It's just made to be durable. It's not the most fancy. It's durable. I can catch a heck of a lot of pike on that. Now, the way I finish it, and for the guys at home, is you're probably going to use a UV, like a thin UV, and I would probably do 2 coats. What I have a little bit different process. I do them on a head spinner. Okay, here's my head spinner. It's a little machine where I would do epoxy, and this spins at about 7 times per minute. And I run 24 hours. So I almost over-engineer my flies to be durable. Like I want them to last a long time. Long epoxy and having all my thread hidden under there is what allows me to do that. Now, I'll fold you back here again. Okay, now what I do here, you see, we don't have like a perfect shape on this. Still got to trim it. Now, I'm going to talk about how I trim these up a little bit. And something I find absolutely indispensable is my curved scissors. You got straight scissors and you got curved scissors. Okay, the curved scissors I like because you less risk of with flat scissors that you're trying to trim this. Maybe you're trying to trim something down here. You don't want the tips going up into here. Mm. The curved scissors just let you stay out on the periphery a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I'll just trim this guy a little bit here just to give you an idea of what I would kind of be doing. And I'm just going to try and smooth that out a little bit. See, just made a little bit of a smoother transition. Okay. I'm going to come down. So I'm going to grab a couple flies here. So there's a pretty nice shape on this. Okay, I've got a couple others tied up here. And I tied these 2 up exactly the same way as what I just showed you. Okay, exactly the same tie. Didn't change anything, didn't do anything, but the profile, okay, imagine you're in an area that got a lot of emerald shiners or smelt or something like that, and you want that more minnow profile, you can do that. Or you can do, say you got shad or like bluegill or rock bass, sunfish, a little deeper body. It's tied exactly the same way. I just trim them different.
Yep.
This style, this sort of fatter body and what we just tied, I would tend to use my curved scissors on it because I'm really just trying to hit a lot of the edges. I'm not really getting into the bulk of it. I'm just trying to clean up that overall shape.
Yeah, stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd just be trimming like we had the last one. I'm just going to trim the edges. I'm not trying to get in here. If I was going to tie the exact same pattern and I wanted a more minnow shape, okay, yeah, that's where my straight scissors are kind of handy. Okay. So instead of trying to stay to the edges, I might grab some bigger clumps like this, okay, and I would chase it up to the head. And you're basically just going to thin out that whole process. Let's see if I could show you a bit here. Okay, so if I want to just say take a little bit off it, I'm going to grab some of that and pull it up, and I'm going to cut it up closer to the head. Do the same thing here. Okay, I might come up under the hook, and I'm going to take off a pretty big clump here. Okay, so there, and there, and that'll start to thin that one out down closer to the minnow shape. Okay, you start to thin it a little bit. So, that's a pretty rough one, but broader shape, my curved scissors, more slender profile, I'm going to come in from the back with my straight scissors. Is that can you follow that?
I can, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good, okay.
Awesome sense.
So, again, this is the one that was just on our vise. If I spent some real time with it, and I spend probably just as much time tying them as I do trimming them. This is what we're eventually going to get to. If I really spend some time with it. So I have nice profile. Okay, we have profile this way. Now, the way we tied it, okay, we're a little bit thinner back here, and we've added a bit more bulk up here. When you look at the profile from the bottom, okay, you have good profile all the way around that fly. Okay, from the side, from the top, from the bottom. We've created a real nice profile. Profile is good. A pike sees that, that's just natural. The other thing that we've done, we've got a little bit of flash coming out the back end here. So as this is moving through the waddle, that's going to give it a nice little bit of wiggle. And we have more density up in the head. So with it being a little stiffer and a little bit more dense up at the front, that's going to push a bit more water and cause the back end to move a little bit. It's not a super movie, it doesn't have a ton of movement. It has more to do with what you're doing with the rod and how you're stripping it. But this is like a day in and day out search fly. If I don't know where the pike are, if I'm trying to find them, great fly. Just pick a shoreline, work, find them, but I mean, cripes, I've done over 100 fish on one of those flies, 100 pike. Super durable, super easy to tie. And then I've added the Sharpies, okay, and all I do, Sharpie marker. That's the only difference there. That's the only difference there is I've just taken a Sharpie to add my Mega Perchy. Okay. If I change out one color, everything there is identical. Just the color of the top wing. So Fire Tiger, Perch, all tied identical. And then I can adjust the sizes of it, okay? So when you're asking about different sizes there, I've tied them identical. I haven't changed anything in the process. It's just the amount I'm adding in. It's a dead simple bait fish. And this was probably designed 50 years ago. The guys were tying this before I was born. So I didn't invent it. I've just applied it to what I'm doing. And you can make them small, make some nice little tarp. You can make some little tarpon colors. Sky's the limit. Flash, color. I've tied them in a huge range. I do like the chartreuse. I'm kind of partial to chartreuse and white. As they say, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. The lady I did the film with, Mary, she was up at the front of the boat one day, tying this fly, pounding fish, and we were in some dark water, and I'm looking out the back of the boat looking for some fish, and I hear Mary, and she goes, "The lights went out." Oh, Mary, and I turn to her, and I turn just as she's, she's setting the hook, and I go, "Mary, what were you talking about? The lights went out." And she said, Well, I could see that fly kind of going along, and then all of a sudden I couldn't see it. So guess what? A fish had it, and she knew to set the hook. That's I like flies that you can see. When you can see a fly, it disappears.
Yep.
Guess what you got to do? Yank them. So I generally do better with a light color, something that I can see easier than a dark one. A little harder to see, super visible.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, that makes perfect
So
sense. I think a lot of people, like when they're thinking streamers, they just assume they're gonna feel every hit. But I think Pike, especially,
yeah,
they're such vacuum.
yeah, that's a big misconception.
Mhm.
Um, and so we should talk about the hook set a little bit. I really push for a strip set. I don't like trout sets. If it's far out, okay, you're stripping along, stripping along. Okay, say you think a fish has come and got it. Okay, so you think, okay, a fish hits it, or it disappeared, or whatever. Okay, I think a fish had it. If you trout set, you lift, right? Where's that fly going? That fly is going out behind you now. That fly's out of the strike zone now. So say you miss it. Now your fly is back here somewhere. It's nowhere near the fish. Okay. Say you think a fish has it. You do a strip set. The fly moves from here. Strip set. You miss them. Now the fly's here. You're giving them a second chance.
Mhm.
So that's important. Line the rod straight up, straight at the fly. I don't like the rod out to the side because on the hook set, you're going to allow the rod to bend. It's going to take away from the impact of your hook set. So when you have a straight line to the fly, when you pull back and you strip set it, it's a direct connection where you're going to drive that hook in versus the rod being out to the side a little bit where you load and the rod kind of loads and your hook set loses some impact.
Yep.
So strip sets straight on. As the closer you get to the boat, we catch a lot of big fish near the boat. That's where you might start thinking about a trout set or a lift or something like that, where you just don't have the room. You might only have a few feet between you and the fish. And a hook set kind of may do it. So sometimes, yeah, strips a trout set where you lift. Or the biggest thing I tell guys, if a fish eats it right beside the boat, tip to tail. You're not trying to create power, but take the tip of the rod and put it to the tail of the fish. Okay. So say a fish comes in and eats this right beside the boat. Okay, my fish comes up behind it, eats it like this. If I pull this way, I might miss it. I could yank that fly right out of its mouth. Or they may I just might not get it. Now, if I set the hook this way, and I don't even have to do it with power, I just lay the tip of the rod back there. The fish is eating it this way, it's going that way. If your tip and rod is over here, it's just going to load up. The hook is set. Done. Job done. Pretty simple. The closer you're in, tip to tail. Farther out, strip set. That's a big one. So you mentioned that, no, you're not going to feel every hit. I've watched so many pike, and I've told so many people, set the hook. It's a big thing. If I tell my guests, if I say set the hook, I say, what are you going to do? They go, set the hook. And I go, yeah. I said, you're not going to, don't stare at me. Don't go, I don't feel anything. If I say set the hook, you set the hook. Because I've seen so many great big pike come up behind a fly. Okay, they grab it, and then they keep going. They don't necessarily bite and hit, and then you're stripping, so you feel it. They've gone over it, and they're taking that fly. And I've watched great big pike come up and eat a fly, and the guy standing there just doesn't feel it, doesn't see it, and he's just stripping along, and you never catch up with it. So when you strip, I should almost say like strip set, because it's not like, okay, fish eats, strip, lift them. Strip until you feel the weight of the fish. You gotta feel the fish.
Yep.
If you don't feel the fish, don't strip until you catch up to them. That's the biggest thing I can tell you about setting hooks.
It's always an interesting feeling too when you just stop feeling the fly. Like you may be stripping and you don't feel fish, but you don't feel the resistance, especially if it's a bigger fly too. Like there's just not. It feels like you snapped a fly off. A lot of time I find.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. You kind of you get into that cadence. You're casting, okay, and you have that little bit of every time you strip, you have a little bit of weight, and so, yeah, sometimes it's all of a sudden, wait, it's not there. At that point, you got to strip, catch up, and all of a sudden, when you feel the weight, you lay into them. And in my personal fishing, once I've done that strip set, and they go, I'll hit them a couple more times. It's all barbless hooks where I am. So he might eat the fly. I set that fish goes on a run. When it kind of gets to the end of its run, I'll often hit him again, just to drop. They got pretty bony mouths, so I'll hit him again. If I pull it out of their mouth and I lose them, so be it. I probably wasn't going to catch that fish anyways. I'd rather just lay into them and know I got them. But yeah, it's all barbless where I am. It's all so. Once you have that fish, client has a big fish on. What I'm looking at as the guide, I'm looking at the bend of the rod, almost nothing else. If you're using a barbless hook, if that rod starts to get, you want to maintain a bend. If that rod gets up straight, you're probably losing that fish.
Yeah,
that's sort of the biggest kiss of death with a barbless hook is just not maintaining the bend throughout the whole fight. Just keep the rod bent.
Yep.
If nothing else, that's about all I look at. I mean, I've got one guest. He hooks a fish, and then what he does is he looks down.
Oh yeah.
It's a mental block he has, but he starts looking down, and he just starts reeling until he catches up to the fish. And I go, come on, you gotta keep it bent. Like he sort of loses all context of the bend of the rod, and he loses a lot of fish there. I mean,
stressful moments.
Don't worry so much about getting onto the reel. A big fish will put you on the reel. I mean, if it's a big fish, you're going to get on the reel. So don't worry. You just worry about the bend in the rod. Let it take the line or do whatever you got to do. Yeah. So there you go. There's the bait fish. Pretty simple little fly. I think I just clean up a few things. Yep. That fly has accounted for a lot of great big giant pike. I don't know how many 45-inch pike I caught on that little fly. I often tell guys, you think about fly, pike always want a great big meal. Here's an analogy I often tell guys is imagine you've just had a big Sunday dinner or something like that. You got some turkey in there or something like that, and you're sitting on the couch watching football, just trying to digest. If somebody took a hamburger and rolled it through the room, you're not going to get up off the couch and chase it. If somebody takes, I like M&M, I like peanut M&Ms or something like that. If somebody puts an M&M beside you and it's right there, yeah, I'm probably going to eat it.
I thought you were going to use the wallet across the room analogy. Just imagine you chasing it down.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so think of that. Yeah, there are times I'm super hungry. There are times I am going to get up and chase that cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And that's the fly that's this.
Yeah.
That's this the cheeseburger. This is the little M&M. So I tend to target a lot of fish that are up in the digestion phase, where they're not always looking for this meal. And they're probably not even looking to eat at all, but you make a good cast and you lay that little thing, right there, they go, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll eat that.
Yep.
All right. So, should we we'll talk about the bunny leech here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Fly.
Grab my next
I might have to throw myself on mute here. We're about 10 minutes away from opening the shop here, and might get a little noisy in here, so I might throw myself on mute for a bit, but I'll let you kind of do things here. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, I can go for a little while. I'm not, we don't have to get to everything. I mean, there's so much I could talk for days about this stuff. But, hey, as long as I can provide a few things and guys learn, if you take something away from it, perfect. That's all I, if you learn something here today, perfect. That's the name of the game.
Awesome.
So I'm going to talk about the bunny leech. This guy here. Okay, pretty basic. If say Chris was up at the lodge and Chris was going, I want to go see what's in Andrew's fly box, and say okay, I might take a certain fly. If somebody were to go into my fly box and say, hey, I'm going to borrow all your bunny leeches, I might cry. you know, if somebody went and took all my bait fish, I might be able to live with it. I can probably work around that. Somebody goes and takes my bunny leeches, like this fly, it's a real love-hate relationship with it. They tangle, they throw kind of like a wet sock. You know, but they catch the heck out of pike. So I kind of have to use them. The one thing, so they do tangle. Okay, so I put a little loop here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to pull you guys in a little tight again. Okay. And I'm just going to show you a few ways to do this that will limit. And Chris did a great video on the bunny leech. I watched it and I learned a lot. Okay. So I'm just going to add a few things to it. When they tangle, one thing you can do here is you can add a few little different pieces of mono. Okay. So see, here's my hook. And I've made a loop here. I have the loop off the back. That just adds as a platform where it can't wrap around here too much. If you want, you can add in another little piece of mono here. So I would add this piece of mono first. Okay, this guy. And I'm just going to tie down the bottom here and have it come out. Then I would do my loop. And then I come here. Because we use barbless hooks, I don't add this loop. I think if I was using barbed hooks, yeah, I probably would. But I don't necessarily, with a barbless hook, I don't necessarily like something that kind of pushes against that. But if you were to tie a bunny leech on a hook like that, it's not going to wrap up anymore for the most part. And I would just add, okay, when you do, it's kind of hard to see. So I just want to use a couple things to show you as a device here. When I tie this loop in here, mono has a natural curl to it, okay? So what I don't want to tie my hook like this and have that mono loop coming up. That's not how I'm creating that loop. I'm creating that loop by the natural curl of the mono. I'm going to put it 90 degrees. I want it coming out from the side. And that's what allows me to tie this, okay? And then I would make that loop.
Yep.
It's just a small tip, but when you tie on your mono, just the way it naturally wants to curl, this is no good. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's how you create that loop.
Oh,
the other thing I'm going to add in here is I generally tie mine exactly the way Chris did it in his video. He did a great job. So I would use, bunny off the back, and I would wrap it with a cross cut like you did, or a magnum hide, and I'd put in my little loop. Another alternative you have, though, is, and I did this in a funky color so you can see it, is sometimes I'll just use bucktail, and I may not even put in a loop, but the bucktail, because it's going back, it does a little bit better job of holding this tail in place. This is what's going to foul. It wants to go all over the place. So just a couple little tips. You can do a mono loop, or, consider maybe the biggest pike I've ever caught, a 47 was on that, tiny little thing, but it was with bucktail, forcing it back, and it just doesn't allow that to get up around the hook as easy versus, when you wrap it with a bunny, this bunny it can't force any, it's not going to hold anything back. It's really soft, maximum movement, but it's not going to prevent fouling.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how I make a living as a pike guide. Is that fly. Like that, if you're going to go out in Ontario or wherever on opening day of pike fishing and you do not have that in your box, good luck. Because you're going to catch some fish, but you're going to run into a fish that you can't. You're just going to run up to a big fish laying shallow that doesn't want to eat. There's your Smartie. There's your M&M. There's whatever, your little snack. You just go, oh, okay, I'll eat that. Okay, bunny leech. And I'm going to add one more thing about it. I'm not going to time it, but I just want to touch some points on it. Because we often throw these to negative fish. So pike like 60-degree water. Sometimes they come into a bay and they're coming up out of cold water. They've eaten a big sucker or something like that. And what they do, they've eaten that guy a little deeper. They slide into some shallow water where the sun can get at them, and they're going to try and bring their body temperature up to the surrounding temperature. Sometimes you roll into a bay and I've seen it where I've seen two big pike. I remember one time a friend of mine, we were out and he caught a 44-incher and I caught a 44-incher back to back, within 5 minutes. His 44-incher basically bit, swam to the boat, turned over, kind of leaned over, went, okay, I screwed up, grab me, guy, get my picture, and I'm good. That fish had probably just moved into the bay. So The temperature of that fish was lower than the surrounding water, which causes it to be lethargic. And so when I say a negative fish, that's often one of the causes of that. The fish, the 44 I caught, minutes later, went wild. Like it came charging in, smashed the fly, big runs, did all that. That fish had probably been in the bay a while and had acclimatized so that its body temperature was equal to or greater than the surrounding water. Mm. So, two fish side by side, very different reactions. And part of that is just how long, one fish has just moved into the bay, trying to acclimatize. Another fish has been there a while, I'm ready to party. I'm ready to eat again. I've digested, good to go. So that's that fish that's negative, that one. One other tip I'm going to give you. When I cast these into fish, it's hugely important that if you're casting at the head of the tail. Pike, when they're aggressive with one another, they'll nip each other in the tail. So if you have a fish laying here and say this is the head, if you make a cast back here and you come over the back or over the tail without touching them, they don't like that they'll spook. It's really important to recognize where the head is, and that's where sunglasses are hugely important. We were talking about, you guys sell the Smiths, those yellow glasses. Invest in glasses. You need to see the fish. You need to know, if you're casting at those negative or lethargic fish, you need to know where the head is. But say you made your good cast, okay? Now you've got the fly out in front of them. Okay. Here's a common mistake I see where guys miss an opportunity. They've got the fly, and the pike starts to move towards it. Okay, we've got interest. That fish is going to come in. He's going to eat this. But sometimes what happens is that fish starts to move, and guys go into their cadence. They just start stripping, and all of a sudden, we've casted it. That fly is sinking. All of a sudden, it's just out of the zone, and that fish doesn't want to chase. And you got to really let them close the gap. If you don't wait till they close the gap and then make little twitches, little twitch, you're trying to just twitch. It's not out. Because I've had big pike where, they see the fly, they come in to turn. The guy strips it away too fast. He doesn't give it a chance to close the gap and get onto it. And that's it. That's your one shot. That fish, the fly is gone, and it turns and swims away, and you never get another shot.
Right.
So let him close the gap. Let him get to it. Don't just yank it out. See how the fish react. Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
So you were saying earlier, black flies aren't always your favorite because you can't see the things. You're talking now about sight fishing to some of these big laid-up fish. Is this a fly that you would blind cast?
Yes. Yeah, I'd still do it. But if I'm in a real search mode, that's where this is going to come in. It just allows me to cover a lot of water.
Sure.
I can fish it a little quicker. Like, you think of a bait fish in the water versus a leech, this moves a lot faster naturally. Bait fish, so I can cover water with this. This, I would tend to use this more once I've kind of located the fish. Okay. But I still use it as a search fly. If they're just lethargic, and I know they're not really and I just need to get that. Yes. But that more day in and day out, something like that is my search fly. This is my finesse.
Yep.
It's a really simple way to kind of contact pike. You know, if you had two rods, or if you're going to do two things, have a search fly that allows you to cover water, is durable, it doesn't tangle. You can just make repeated cast. It's going to function pretty well. You know, and then when you get onto some fish, yeah, this is your little kind of secret weapon. Slow down. You're going to just fish it a little slower, let it get in front of their face.
Awesome. Cool.
1-2 punch.
Yeah.
It always works.
Dynamic duo. Cool.
50%, 60% of the time, it works 100% of the
time. Cool. You want to jump into the tying here?
Yeah, I mean, the next fly I would do would take a little bit. So I may not get to the Whistler. Do you want me to just do it super dead simple, like 1 minute fly?
Sure, let's do it. Or were you planning on?
Like I said, you got me for as long as you want. I can do the Whistler. Yeah, we're okay for time.
Were you planning on tying the bunny leech, or?
No, because I watched your video. I thought you did such a good job of it.
All right.
I would do it exactly the way you do it.
All right, cool.
I just lay down a lot. I mean, so yeah, I've gone through. I tie a lot of flies. I'm a professional fishing guide. I've been watching your videos. And I go, yeah, I've learned things, and I would encourage guys to do that. So I don't really necessarily feel a need to.
All right, cool.
Tie that, other than Chris, you've done good. You've done good, kid.
Thanks.
I just want to add in a few little notes about it. That's all, because it is an important fly. But
all right, cool.
It's awesome. pretty straightforward. Do it like Chris does it.
All right. Well, let's see the Whistler then. Whistler's a cool fly.
All right, Whistler's a cool one. I'm just going to swap out my stuff here. So what I'm going to tie is kind of often affectionately referred to as a poor man's Whistler, because it's all we're going to use that slinky fiber again, same material we used earlier. So, I kind of tried to do it that you would, if you're going to try and tie some of the flies I'm showing, you don't need to get a ton, you can use the slinky fiber, for a few things here. So, okay, I'll grab my other bin stuff here. All right. So this time I'm using, I actually got Vivus 140 here. You could use a flat wax 20. I'm not doing the mono here. I'm just using a light thread. Cool. And okay, let me get this out. A few things ready here. Okay, so poor man's Whistler. Okay, this is a white one. Okay, but here's a poor man's Whistler. Super easy fly. There's another one out there called, it's often referred to as a Blanton's Whistler. I don't know who Blanton is, but basically a Blanton's Whistler would be using more natural, like, there's some marabou and feathers and bucktail. This is basically just, so we call it a poor man's version because it's synthetic, and that's about the difference. So when I tie this, I'm going to tie it on a bigger hook. I'm going to pull you guys in a little tight here again. Okay, so we can see it. How are we doing there? So what I've got here is 4/0. Okay, here's the bait fish hook. We just tied the bait fish on that hook. So we're going up in size, and you can use a little bit heavier gauge. So just it's basically again like a 4/0 bait fish hook, just a big wide gap. I like hooks with a lot of gap here. I can fit my whole thumb in there. I can fit a finger. Like big pike got big mouths. You need that big hook to catch something. If you got like a small If you don't have a big bend in there, you do tend to miss fish. So I like a bigger, wider gap on my pike flies. I want to fit my finger right in there, and it's all good. Okay, so I've done the same thing. I've already got a thread base down here. And again, I did my file here. I did a little bit of file here just to scuff it up a little bit. Lay my glue down. Okay, so that's the starting point we're at. Same way you start a lot of streamers. Okay. Now, what I'm going to use here is some Flashaboo. Last time we used Crystal Flash. This is actually a Flashaboo Magnum. It's a thicker strand. And I'm going to show you why. Here's regular Flashaboo. Okay, here's a poor man's whistler I did. Okay, we'll just decide. Or sorry. Okay, regular Flashaboo Magnum. Okay, say I take this over because I don't like flies that tangle a lot. Okay, you see how that hangs down? Can you kind of see the difference there? So if I was doing a whole lot of casting, because this isn't as supported, it's a lot of movement, but on this particular fly, if I use this material, it tends to tangle a little bit more versus you see I have just the way this bends, this will kick a little bit more water. So that's why I use it. The Flashaboo Magnum. So I'm going to get a pretty good clump here. I might get, I don't know, 20 strands. I've never really counted them out too much, but yeah, that's probably pretty good. I think these are 12-inch. Okay. Pop that off. Now, the last time on the bait fish, I teased these out. This time I'm not. I'm going to tie the tail of this. I'm going to even cut it square. So I'm just going to fold this in two, get it roughly like that, okay, and double it up on the thread. Okay, you see that? Okay, and I'm going to pull it down and turn it. Okay, and I'm going in about halfway, maybe just a little bit back of halfway on the shank. Okay, and see how I have separation this way? Okay, so my fold, like my U is this way. I don't want it turned the other way. It's hard to explain that, but basically when I lay it down, the back, I'm stacking it upright so that when this turns, it's going to more want to go up and down versus side to side. Is that kind of clear? Clear as mud? Yes, yeah. So yeah, when you double it back, you're doubling it back this way, you're not pinching it in the middle sideways. So it's like, you're stacking it straight, but over the back. And again, I'm keeping it all on the top here, high and tight. And the idea of doing this high and tight is that, and right to the back, is that it doesn't really allow that material to come forward. It's going to tangle. You'll get the odd one of these that'll come up as you're casting them. But overall, it's a thicker, stiffer material forced back. If I turn this, hopefully you can see this. Okay, so when I lay it out to the side here, okay, just that material, you see I don't have something like hanging down this way. If I had one kind of like a rogue piece of flash, cut it off, because that's the one that's going to wrap up around the hook. So I kind of turn this, I lay that flash in and I turn it. Okay. I just don't want anything, if I lay it to the side, it still stays pretty straight back. That's what I want, because that's going to limit the fouling of this fly. This is such a simple fly. It's great. Okay, so there's my heavy material. Now, what I'll do it now is I'll take this, and these are all kind of jagged. I'm going to square them. I like a square tail on this. I find it gets a bit more movement. The way it ripples, I find if it's square, it kicks. This fly really kicks some water. I think if you tease that out, it kind of deadens that effect a little bit. I just personally, I found a square tail a little bit better than a taper tail. It's probably the only fly I tie where I want square. The only thing, I guess. Okay, we're going to take our slinky fiber. So we're halfway back here. Slinky fiber. I've cut this exactly the same as I did. This is my, my 5-inch section. This is the back half, same as I used for the tail section on the bait fish. Didn't do anything different here. Okay. So I'm going to spread this out, grab kind of the amount I want, which kind of comes by feel. I would say this is really a fly. For those of you, I don't know, there's a great painter, used to have a TV show named Bob, had an awesome haircut. And sometimes Bob would go, if you want to put a, if you just want to add in a happy little bush here or something like that, you go ahead and do that. That's what you should be doing at the fly vise. Channel your inner Bob. You say, I'm going to add in a little bit of something. Be creative. Try things. So just because I'm tying it this way, you can still experiment, try some different colors, add a different kind of flash, see how it works. That's how I did. I tied a lot of bad flies before I tied any good flies. We all start off tying bad flies. I think. I'm sure some guys, were good at the game. Not me. I had to work at it. Okay. So here's my 5-inch. On the bait fish, we tease this out. I'm not going to tease this. We're going to make this one square. The reason for that is that when I tie this on, I don't want long fibers coming back here to affect this. Okay. I want this sort of to be independent of this. That makes sense. So I'm going to tie it about 50-50, just in front of our last tie-in point. And this I'm going to tie in the round. Okay. So I'm going to just try and get a fairly even distribution, about 50-50. There you go. Pretty simple. Now, I like, and I think you guys sell these little proto-johns. They're great. Do you guys have them?
We don't, but cool.
You can use a pen then. Take the ink cartridge out of a pen and push it back. It works the same. But I'm going to use this to force this material back. Okay, get it even. And then I'm going to try and spread it around the shank of the hook. Okay, and just tighten that down. Dead set 5-inch, fold it back in the round. Okay, and I'm going to kind of get up to, I'm going to force it up. You'll feel where I tied this in. That's about where I'm tying up to. Okay. Now, when I do these, and you could probably do it a UV epoxy, you might use a lot of glue here. You could put in your super glue. I'll often epoxy these, but you want to kind of lock this section down a little bit. Now, where's my black? Hang on. I need my front section here. So I'm going to use some brown here. Guess I've got to cut this a little bit. Okay. I'll just do this real quick to get what I want. Okay. There we go. Now, one thing I realized I left out, that I often do, when I had the fold here, when I fold this back, I can add, and I don't always do it, but I could add crystal flash. Before I folded that back, if I wanted to just lay some crystal flash, just add a little bit of flash in there. That's the step added on. So you see here's a finished one. You see I've got a little, you can't maybe see it, but there's just a little bit of crystal flash in with that orange. I realize most of the flies, most of them I tie, I actually really don't add that crystal flash, but okay, so here we're going to do our front section. Again, this will be my 3-inch. Might be a little long. There. Okay. This one I'll tease out a little bit because it's going to lay over. Okay. Same thing I've done here. Okay. I'm just going to lay it down in front of my last tie point. I'm going to go back over it, double it back. Dead simple. Okay. So I'm gonna tie it in the round. Okay, 3 loose wraps. I do a few loose wraps, not tight here. Get it to go around the shank of the hook, kind of relatively even. All right, now we tie it on, and again, okay, you see there'll be a hard part. You'll run into your tie from this spot. Okay, that's as far back as I need to go. And I'm gonna come forward a little bit. Okay, I've got a little clump here that's sticking out longer. I'm just gonna square that up a little bit. Same thing, it's the exact same stage as the last one. We're gonna double this back, kind of get it around, tie it off. Okay. So this fly, that may be a little bit long on here. It's really in 3 parts. There's really 3 parts to this fly. There's the head, body, and the tail. It's 3 tie-ins, and you head, body, tail. All in the round. You don't have to worry about taper. It's just so easy. Okay. So I'm gonna just kind of bring this thread up to the eye. I'm just gonna even this out, fill this in a little bit here. Okay. Take a little bit of time here. I'm back on it. Nestle do a great job on this one. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I've added a good chunk of thread here, built up my head. Now, where's my, find my little eyes, my little chain link eyes. Okay. So, back in the old, remember you used to have the rubber stoppers in your bathroom sink? They used to have a little chain so you didn't lose them.
Yep.
That's what these are. These are really hard to see, but there's just 2 little, I don't know how well you can see that. It's like a little barbell.
Yep.
But it's the chain link that held the rubber stopper in place, so you didn't lose it. That's all it is. Really high-tech stuff.
Oh yeah.
Don't raid your mother's bathroom for chain link eyes. She'll kill you. Don't do that.
Raid your own or buy them at the shop.
Lay this on top here. Whoop. And I'm just going to go up on top of the thread. Okay. See that?
Yep. So
now what I got to do is I got to line them up, because otherwise I never get them on straight. So I got to kind of just get them. I just want them even with the okay, sort of even. Sure. If I don't look at it straight on, it's always off to one side. Okay. So I'm just gonna do some loops here. The same way, if any of you guys have tied a clouser, when you tie in the barbell lead weight, that's all we're doing here. We're just doing it on the top. There's really no weight to these. It's not going to cause it to roll over or anything like that. So, 10 wraps or so. That's about it. And then get in behind it.
Yep.
Just cover the head a little bit. Okay. Hip finish.
Yep.
I'll just do a quick little half hitch. I still use these. I know.
Oh yeah. Yep. So those
which works for me.
On this fly. Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
That's the fly. And what I would do, okay, now I got a white head, so I pretty much use white thread for just about everything.
Sure.
I got tired of trying to keep different thread colors. I just use white thread and a Sharpie.
Yep.
So I'm just going to color the head in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
With a brown, just kind of to roughly match. This is not a finesse fly. The bait fish and a bunny leech, like a bait fish, I can kind of search and finesse. This is not a search or a finesse fly. This is getting out and searching. That is it. That's your fly.
Fly.
It's dead simple. I mean, you can change the proportions a little bit, but when that thing goes through the water, and I've done this in red, yellow, gold.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, I tied up a whole bunch of these for the lodge, and this is a standard mainstay fly at the lodge. You know, this little guy will drop down, and this tail just kicks. It really it really moves a lot of water. And I actually wasn't throwing. I was on a bait fish streak. I've been running some bait fish and deceivers and things like that and doing pretty good. So I tied up a whole bunch of these for the lodge. And I halfway through the season, I said, how a guy's throwing it. I was asking the owner. He said, we always talk flies. He's a big fly guy. And I said, a guy's throwing it. And he says, yeah. He says, do you know how many 47 and 48s have been caught on that this season? Like giants. And I have caught, to me, this is actually a pretty good big fish fly. Because it's in the round. We're not trying to be subtle. It's trying to create a shape. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit more kick, say, compared to, this is a tiny bait fish.
Yeah.
But, overall, it's, 5-6 inches. It's like 3 steps. It's 3 tie-ins. Well, 4 with the eyes.
Yeah. Huh?
And so when I do them, what I do them is, okay, I do these on the wheel. What you could do at the end, I add a little bit of epoxy at the tail here. So if you look at the tail, okay, you could take your UV. When you tie in your UV, you tie in your tail. You could hold this back. So you look, as you come off the tail here, this is hard, actually. It doesn't bend almost to back here, okay? There's no way that fly, if I use that epoxy, that fly can't tangle. You might get a strand, but it's light. It has a little bit of weight, so it gets down. It's got a lot of bulk to it, so it's going to push some water. Oh my God, it's the simplest fly, and it is just caught. That catches, I don't know how many 47 4-footers. I don't know. That fly's probably got a 50 on it at some point.
Yep. No, I'm sure.
It's not high tech. If you want to sit at a vise and just learn how to tie a basic pike fly that catches big fish, this is great. This is great on an intermediate, by the way. Get down a little bit. So, a bait fish or bunny leech, that's where I might push into the backs of bays when those fish are a little shallower. But say I'm fishing some shallow bays. I'm trying to find them on where the sun is hitting the sand, warming them up. If those fish aren't back there and you got to pull on the outside of bays and you start looking at weed beds and points and things like that, and you go into search mode, slap that on a 9 weight. It doesn't look like much, but you would be amazed at how much that tail kicks. Pike, their lateral lines are incredibly, incredibly sensitive. This is sort of a funny little story, but at the lodge, we call it the swimming hole. So there's a spot where the staff get to go and swim. And we have several pet pike. The biggest rule in the fishing hole or in the swimming hole is no fishing. So literally you walk down we have a little dock down there. You walk down the dock and look, you get the whistle, and there's going to be some little 30-inch pike come in. Because we always get worms in for the walleye guys. And so, when you got to throw some worms out, they start getting old. We feed them we call them the Johnnies. We feed them to our pet pike. They've never seen a lure. They've never felt a hook. So they're kind of friendly. I've taken a worm. Okay, if you take a worm and you throw it right in front of them, yeah, they're on it. And I don't know how many times I've witnessed this, where I've taken a worm and and I'll throw it about 20 feet away from the pike, behind them, when it's flat calm. That thing will land, and they don't notice it. It's amazing how sensitive they are. You watch the rings. Rob did a video about topwaters, and he said, okay, when you throw a topwater, let it hit the surface and let the rings dissipate before you move it. I can attest to that. Because I throw a little live worm 20 feet away from this pike, when the rings, they don't notice it, the rings from the worm, which are tiny, go over that fish turns, goes directly to it, and eats it. It's mind-boggling how well they can track it. So it doesn't need to be a huge fly overwhelming that pushes all this water. You think about, I throw a little tiny worm in 20 feet away, they find it. So a fly like this, it's got some bulk. It's going to, that tail, it just moves so good. It moves so good. It's a fly I almost didn't believe in, but I mean, I've seen so many big fish caught on it.
Yeah.
But I tend to like, orange and black and silver, yellow, red, gold is killer. You can throw it all day. You're never going to hurt your rotator cuff with that one.
No. Yeah. That's what we're. Yeah, I think that's an underrated thing is castability when it comes to flies. You see a lot of the big stuff, and especially like pike for sure, but in the musky world, more and more guys are looking to push the limits, 10, 12, 14, 16-inch flies. And yeah, you pay for it at the end of the day. You don't have to. Like I say, they'll gladly eat small stuff. So.
Yeah, no, it's bigger. And look, I'm a musky guy. I throw the big giant baits, and I get that. I have some sore shoulders at times, but I tell you, the longer I do this pike guiding, and the more big pike I catch on flies that are that big, it makes it. I'm a believer. If you put the right bait in the right place in front of the right fish, they're going to eat it. It doesn't have. You don't need a 12-inch fly to catch a 50-inch pike or a 50-inch muskie. You can still catch that fish on a 4-inch fly if you put it in the right place at the right time. I still have guys, guests that'll throw 12-inch flies, and sometimes I make them. Sometimes, there are those situations later in the year. I'm fishing weed beds, and we're going to rip some big flies over the top, and it's highly effective. But you get an hour or a half hour in, my guests start kind of looking back at me going like, how long are you going to make me throw this thing? Can I go back to my whistler, my little buddy, or my bait fish yet?
Yeah.
It's killing my shoulder. And that's a factor. I mean, like, I'm not getting guys your age, Chris, to come and fly fish with me. I'm getting 60, 70-year-old people and that are up there to have fun and afford it. And they just can't physically do it. So that's how, Mary from the film A Common Thread, 72-year-old great-grandmother, fly fished 12 days. Fly was that big, and she caught, I don't know, a dozen, she was catching 1 or 2 over 40 every day. Should I do one more? One more super quick one?
Yeah, do one more. I have to actually jump away for a sec, so I'm going to let you freestyle this one. And this will be good.
Sounds good. Okay. This is going to be a super quick one. Hopefully, it'll take me longer to set it up than it will to actually tie it. Okay. So I'm going to tie this on an O'Shaughnessy DMC. Okay. There we go. Okay. You're probably going to laugh at how stupid simple this is. And
I can't fly.
Yes.
the black has been showing up okay. I've got black and chartreuse I could tie it with. Does the black black shows up pretty good, eh? Okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So this is super hair. So slinky, we were tying with slinky fiber earlier. They're pretty similar. The super hair it's a little stiffer, a little coarser, and it doesn't have the same volume. Super hair is so like I said, it doesn't have the density, doesn't have quite the movement. But this stuff's kind of going all over the place. And this is a little secret. I've never actually tied this fly before. I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. This actually goes back to a guest I had a few years back, and it was him and another guy, and they did one trip. It was a one and done to Wollaston, and he had tied a few of these up, and we had, if you were going to go to a fly-in pike lodge, you spend your winter dreaming of catching big pike and having like the trip of a lifetime. This fly resulted in one of those trips of a lifetime. Okay. This is literally a 1 minute fly. Okay.
I'm going to time.
Thread bait.
Hope you know that. You're being
link or super hair. Okay. In black. I'm going to put this on the hook. I'm going to tie it in the round a little bit. Okay. I'm going to lock it down. Ooh, a little uneven over there. Yeah, a little uneven over there. That's probably already better than how my guest had it. Okay. That's it. One material, just like that. I'm going to take that. I am going to double that back. And the original, the one my guest had, I've actually got one here I'm going to show you. I'm pretty sure he used a 5-minute epoxy or UV cure or something like that. Okay. All I did is I doubled it back so it's a little longer up at the front. Okay. And gonna tie it off. Guess what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna whip finish it. That's the fly.
That was actually a 1 minute fly while you're describing. Like, that never happens. That's good.
Yeah. I said it was a 1 minute fly. I mean, okay. There you go. Now I would take, I got brown here, but okay, there's my marker. Super hair. It's just the material. It's stiff. This stuff doesn't foul too much. Time,
Little glue on that, and
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's as close to a bulletproof fly as you get, too.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to go wrong with that? I mean, it's just, it's pretty stiff. It's going to stay back. Okay, I actually have a couple that my guest gave me. Here's the actual one. This is the one my guest, and he had a few of these, and he came up, I think it was June, July, I think it was like mid-July or something like that. It was two guys, fly guys, and the fishing was actually kind of tough in camp. All the guys that were out there throwing the spinners weren't doing so good because the pike, it was hot, sunny weather. Those fish weren't out feeding. They were all up on sand, and it was sunny. And we spent 4 days sight fishing. I mean, just about every fish we caught, we'd cast it. That was it. And in 4 days, I mean, we had a few of those days where, we would have 40 fish over 30 inches, 38s, 39s, and we'd have four. I think by the end of the trip, we had well over a dozen, over 40 inches, up to 45 inches on that.
Amazing.
Now the conditions were right for it.
Sure.
And we kind of mopped up in camp. Like, we were kind of like the guys that crushed it in camp, and I'm not going to say I'm the greatest guy in camp, that I've always, I have a few times I beat everybody up, but that fly was one of those trips. Like, if I wanted the trip of a lifetime, that provided it for two guys from somewhere in the US, literally a 1 minute fly. It doesn't, pike flies don't have to be complicated.
Yep.
They're as complicated as you allow them to be.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that fly probably could be fished fairly deep. Like, that thing looks like it would sink pretty quickly. Are you able to fish it as slow as you would like a bunny leech?
Yeah, but I'd have to go back. It probably has a little bit higher sink rate than a bunny leech. Yeah, I mean, if you were to fish that, we were still just fishing that on floating lines. I mean, I had bunny leeches in the box. I mean, sometimes you just get a guest that wants to catch fish on their flies. That's fine. I mean, at one point, there's two guys at one point, the one guy was throwing this, the guy had tied him, and then the other guy was throwing something white, like a bait fish or something like that. And we're going along the shoreline. And after the other guy was about 10-1, the other guy turned to me and said, "Do you mind if I put on one of those too?" That was it. The next 4 days, I had two guys throwing that. So yeah, it has this thing. And again, you could doll that up. You could put some bucktail, or you can add to it. You obviously don't need eyes. Eyes aren't the biggest thing. It's just super hair on a hook. Go find some pike in midsummer up on shallow sand and put it in front of them.
Very cool.
And the biggest pike you're gonna find will eat that. I mean, it's the little snack.
They make a nice eel for the striper guys too.
What's that?
Oh, make a nice eel pattern for the striper guys out east too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big crossover. I would say, like, I'm influenced by a lot of the striper fly tires. I think there's a big crossover, probably one of the biggest crossovers. There's not necessarily a lot of crossover between trout flies and pike flies. There's some, but certainly if you're looking at striper flies, like you said, yeah, there's some good crossover between the two. Big predatory fish.
Yep. And castable flies, like those guys are casting through wind and for distance over waves and stuff. So, yeah.
That doesn't have too much air resistance. I mean, I do tie a similar version, something along those lines, but just bulked up. It's just more material, and it's just the more material you add to it, the harder it gets to cast. That's all. You're going to have some more wind resistance. I mean, that's a big thing with guiding. I'm always trying to have the wind behind behind the caster, or if he's it's coming onto his off shoulder. How you guide a spin fisherman and how you guide a fly fisherman are pretty different things, and that really relates to the wind. I mean, if I have two spin guys, you go into a bait, cast wherever you want. It's a free for all. The fly guys, it's more planning. I mean, I sit outside the bay and plan with my guest. I say, okay, we're going to slide in on this side. The wind's going to be here. We're going to move down this shoreline. This is what I'm going to have you to do. So before I ever fish a spot, I always talk about it with my guest. These are there's weeds here, there's rocks there. These are the things we're going to focus on. So yeah, but yeah, there's not much to that one. It's the first time I've ever tied it. I saved it for you guys.
I'd say you did a pretty good job.
Good.
Wicked. Cool.
So that's it. I mean, we're hour 40 minutes into it. That's about all. I don't think I'm gonna be tying any more today.
Yeah, I mean, you're showing off all the color combos guys can do with this. I mean, you could easily stock a box or two with just what we saw today. So, lots to take away there, I think.
Yeah. Here's one of my smaller.
Oh, here we go.
Here, I'll show you. Here's one of my fly boxes.
Yep.
Okay. You see, I've got a lot of bait fish up here.
Familiar faces.
I've got some whistlers. I got a few like bucktail deceivers. I'll fill this. Okay, I got bunny leeches. I got some different. I have another box with bigger stuff, but that's for the day in, day out. Yellow, red and yellow. Like I said, being able to have a fly that when a fish hits it, it disappears. Set the hook. A little harder to do that with the black bunny. Black bunnies are hard to see, but it's the nature of the beast. But yeah, there's a professional Pike Guides fly box. It's
gorgeous.
Pretty much mostly what I showed you. Nothing. There aren't a lot of big secrets.
Yep. No, that's great. I mean, I think frankly, if you look at most guides' boxes, there aren't a lot of secrets. As much as they might want you to believe that. It's yeah.
So the biggest key is how you apply them.
Yeah.
And choosing the right fly. Like I said, we talked about a search fly versus a finesse fly. That's a big thing. You need. If I was going to fill a pike box, I want flies that can fill those two roles. I want a fly that I can just cast all day and just search, probably more outside the bays, get around some weed beds and rock points and flats and things like that, and just something I can fish quicker, cover water, And then when I find fish, or if I'm on negative fish where, maybe a cold front, then I just have something slower sink rate that can hover a little bit more, give them a chance to eat. If you cover those two bases, that's going to cover for 95% of your fishing,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to break it down and think about it. Very cool. Nice. Well, as I mentioned off the top, you've got that F3T video, which is definitely worth a watch. It'll at least get you hyped for the season. So we've got the link for that in the description here. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, whether they're looking at maybe a trip at the lodge or wherever it may be, how would they do that?
To get a hold of me, Instagram, I guess, or Facebook.
Oh, yeah. So Cassandra Marr on Facebook.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sure. You have my contact.
Yeah, we've got
email
too. Reach out.
A phone number, but Facebook or Instagram, I'm a friendly guy. If guys have questions, I'm happy to help. Whatever.
Yeah.
Or call the lodge, Wollaston Lake Lodge. They have a full-time staff working in the winter, taking bookings and stuff. Hopefully, I'll be there this summer.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Crossed.
Enough. Very good.
My hands are getting a little soft. They need to get cut up by spikes.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's what I got for you. So hopefully the guys watch it. I don't know how many guys are watching, but hopefully, if you can take one or two things away from today, I've done my job. It's when I'm guiding, if it's a good day of fishing or it's a bad day of fishing, if guys have fun and they learn something, that's my job. I think of my job as fulfilled. Hopefully we catch more fish.
Always the hope, but yeah, I'm sure if people really do take this stuff away and apply it, that will result in a few more fish in the boat sooner rather than later, for sure.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Pike is a lot of fun. It's Pike on the fly is addictive.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
I really love it. It's just, I don't know. It's a thrill. Go do it. Go get out there. Just get some wire, get some flies. Just get out there and go for it. Just go for it.
Yeah. Don't be intimidated. They can be big, but they're accessible. They're all over the place, and they are a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you get one little thing I would say, if you get that big pike of a lifetime, okay, you're gonna grab them up under here, right? Grab them, big tip, tuck your thumb. The worst, I see lots of cuts. The worst cut is right across this part of the thumb, right here. If you're ever gonna have a really bad cut from a pike, that's where it's gonna be, generally. Because what happens is, okay, you're holding it, guys forget to tuck their thumb. When a fish thrashes in your hands, when they thrash, they open their mouth. Okay, you're holding it. If your thumb is up here, guess where it's going to go? Right in their mouth. So when you're holding them, you got them up under here, tuck your thumb. Don't put your thumb in a pike's mouth. Don't do that. I've done it. It sucks.
Yeah, unfortunately, only one way to learn sometimes. But that's where nets come in, and you don't always have to handle them quite so quickly. So, yeah.
I learned a lot of things in pike fishing the hard way over a lot of years. I'm at this point, I figure I'm up around 20,000 of the little buggers that I've handled. I've had a few cuts.
Yeah, can only imagine.
Yeah.
Right on.
So,
cool.
So there you go. I hope, I had a lot of fun. I just, and thank you to you and Rob. I'm a big fan of drift. I go in, like I said, I raid your Slinky Fibers and for our blends and your stick on eyes, and you guys, I love going in there, and it's always a good conversation. It's great service. You guys are really well stocked. I like the fact that you guys just did something where you got rid of the peg beads or the peg eggs.
Sure. Yeah.
For the trout, the plastic beads. So I live on Lake Huron. I live, a few minutes from the Saugeen. In the fall, I find those literally by the hundreds. Literally, and they go out into the lake and they wash along, and I pick them up by the hundreds. And it's so the fact that you guys are sort of making the environmental decision, you guys are right on what you guys are doing. I'm really impressed. And you got a loyal customer in me.
Well, thank you. We do what we can. We enjoy the rivers and lakes around here too, so we try and do our part to.
You got to protect them.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, thank you again for spending your Saturday morning with us, and to everyone viewing as well. Like I say, if anyone wants to get in touch with Andrew, whether it's just for any other advice on Pike or if you're looking at a trip to the lodge, you can check in with us at the shop. We'll get you in touch, or you can check out Andrew on Instagram or Facebook, or the lodge as well. They've got their website. Was it wollastonlake.com, or do you know?
Yeah, www.wollastonlakelodge.com. Sure. Pretty sure.
Cool.
Should be it.
Again, link for the video in the description below. Everyone should definitely check that out because it's a good watch. Right on.
So, Chris, thank you so much, and enjoy your Saturday, everybody.
You too. Before I sign off, I just want to mention to everyone, we do have more streams coming up. Next week, we do have Winston coming back for another round of steelhead flies, and the week after, we've got local guide Tyler Dunsmore doing some steelhead stuff as well. So, lots to look forward to. If we don't see you there, we'll see you in the shop. All right.
Tight lines, everybody. Take care.